Locho sampo pa gyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngo da pelge drolor zambe tse parche palde lame shabla solvade Omo a Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om a Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sungi Nawa Tsedo So Seche Ningne Sowa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshune Ila Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lungi Drubra Jingilo Soni Sodan Dikdun Shape Tse Dungi Namge Insu Lekshune Lapchen Tsoni Yonsu Tsopa Dan Chera Nyetun Chanwara Jingil Chanchu Pargi Ninsen Tukun Tu Nya Pime Sidru Lekshun Chanchu Drube Gegen Kunshi Shi Tungen De La Drubra Jingil Dagi Lona Chela Chopa Dan Chemi Samchur Ngemba Shiwad Chedan Timbe Dede Malupa Beme Lungi Drubra Dorna Tine Tsera Tamche Dan Teche Pardo Nega Tamche Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tuche Chinge Dala Siksos Kongyab Drewe Nyamda Dajala Chetsun Lame Tuche Rabgone Kudan Sunge Nawa Drame Tu Nyamsu Nyongwe Kesan Tobrash Kewa Kundu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Cheki Pela Longchech Sadan Lamge Yende Rabzone Dorje Change Koba Nyur Tobe Sho Pakyoke Kudandagi Lo Pakyoke Sundandagi Pakyoke Tudandagi Ye Teyerme Chiktu Jingelo Pakyoke Kudang Dagilo Pakyoke Sunda daginga pakyu ketudang dagi yerme chik tu chingilo ma kyo ke kudang dagilo ma kyo ke sunda daginga ma kyo ke tudang tagi te yerme chik tu jingelo. Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Kyamunye Swaha. Sangye chedan soge chanam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam gi drola penchira sangye druparasho sangye chedan soge chanam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yesterday, we were looking a little bit about the karma, and we saw one very important point, which is not the most common way of explaining the karma, but I wanted just to go back briefly, which is the fact that to understand that the karma, first of all, is not something totally, independent by itself, but karma, it's mainly one manifestation, one aspect of interdependence. Interdependence is the basis of how everything exists. If we analyze reality, we will find out that if we analyze it with a mind of coherence and a bit of wisdom, we will find out that reality is totally interdependent. Everything that exists is completely connected one with each other, and nothing exists out of nothing, nothing ends in nothing, everything is interconnected. No? So this interdependence is how things exist. That's actually the basis of the correct view of reality. And so once we see that everything is related, that everything is connected, karma is one aspect within that, which is the aspect of the interconnectedness or the interdependence that exists between our own actions, the conditions in which we live, and the results that we experience. Okay? There is an interdependence between this. When I do something, it's not that it's going to be, it's not independent of all the rest. When I say a word, when I make a choice, when I make any action, it doesn't remain totally independent of all the rest. It's something that actually interacts with the rest. So, the interaction that exists within my actions, the conditions in which I am, and the results that I experience, this is what we're talking about karma. Okay? So we should not see karma as a sort of a law that someone imposes on us. And much less is something only for Buddhists. It's not like, okay, Buddhists have karma, and so if you're a Buddhist, you need to be careful with the karma, what you do, because the karma may catch you or something like that. It's nothing to do with that. And if you're a Christian, okay, then you need to be careful with God. That's not how I see it. Okay? We may have different ways of explaining the same reality in different religions and so on. And I don't enter now here to judge and to explain other religions. I'm not the right person to do that. But from the Buddhist perspective, karma is not something that is a law that is imposed on us. Karma, basically, it is actually simply the interdependence that exists, like everything is interdependent. That's the basis of reality. As everything is interdependent, there is also an interdependence between our actions, the conditions, and the results that we experience. So that's what karma is actually about. Okay? And within that, what is important to understand is that we do have freedom, but we don't have that much freedom. In the sense that we are not free from all the actions we have done in the past. We are not free from the choices we have done. We are not free from the experiences we had, and so on. And at the same time, we are not free from the conditions we have at the same time in the present also. But we are free to choose how to interact with the causes that we have made in the past, with our own past, and the conditions that we have in the present. This freedom we have at every moment. Okay? So when we talk about the karma, it's more like understanding better how this interdependence work in order to use it in a way that is favorable for ourselves. That's the meaning of understanding karma and dealing with it. So it's, for example, if we make a metaphor, we could say it's like driving a car. When we drive a car, there is a whole interdependence of the car that we need to respect. And someone that has already had the experience and already knows very well how to drive the car and has the full experience will tell us, oh, here you need to press in order to get the gas. Okay? When you need to stop, you need to press there for the brake. If you want to stop and then you press the gas, you get the opposite result. So there is a whole interdependence, okay? When you are in these circumstances, you need to do this, otherwise it's dangerous. And when you are in that, you need to do it that way. There is a whole way. And then it's like, if I am driving the car, and then suddenly there is a big wall in front of me, but I want to go straight. But there is a wall. So even though my wish is to go straight, there is a wall. My possibilities are or I turn right, or I turn left, or I go back, or I stop, or I crash myself into the wall. These are the possibilities there. Why? Because even though I want it to be different, I need to interact with the reality that is around me. I have no choice about that, which are the so-called conditions. Conditions are the environment and all the beings that live in the environment. Human beings and animals and insects and spirits, whatever form of life that exists in this environment, and their own actions and their own choices and the interaction we have with all of that. That's the conditions that we have. So sure, the action of other people do influence us. At the same time, it's not possible for us to experience something that we have not made the causes to experience. Everything that we go through is because at some point, in some way, we create the causes to be there and to have that experience. But if the conditions are not there, we can also not have such experience. So sure, we are influenced by what other people say, by what other people do, by the choices that they have, and so on. Okay? We are interdependent, and the interdependence happens between the causes that we make, the conditions that we have, and we experience it through the result of our own lives, through our own results, okay? So, similar to when driving a car, that we need to understand that there are rules. What are the rules when driving a car? That's simply the interdependence of the parts put together. So once we understand well that interdependence, okay, if I do this, it will happen that. If I do that, it will happen that. Why? Because the parts interact with each other. Interdependence is what? It's the interaction that is there within everything else. So once we understand this interaction, then we can use it in a more careful way and in a way that is of more benefit for us, and we can avoid accidents. Similar to that, in our own life, karma is basically the rules that happen, not exactly the rules, but karma is the way how our actions interact and give us results. So once we understand better how it works, then we can be more careful. If I don't want to crash, better I don't do this. If I don't want to have that result, better I don't do that. If I want to have that other result, I need to do the causes that will bring me that type of result and try to go to look for the conditions and so on. At the same time, one very important thing that is the main subject of today, which is the so-called purification, basically is the fact that karma is impermanent and it is interdependent. Karma, I mean the actions that we have already done. What we have already done in the past, we can still interact with it and we can transform it. And that's the main meaning of purification. Okay? As we go through understanding the karma, and seeing this interdependence, how karma is actually this interdependence, it is important for us to understand the, let's say, like the rules, but it's more like, once I understand how things work, then I can direct myself with more awareness. No? It's like, it's not a matter of lack of freedom or anything like that. No? Freedom doesn't mean to be able to do anything we want how we want. It's like, actually, I believe that we are free to do anything we want. Okay, you want to kill someone, you are free to do it. But you are not free from the consequences of your action. There is a law. If we break the law, somehow we are free to break the law, but we are not free from the consequences of having broken the law. We are free to do anything we want, but we are not free from the consequences, and we are at the same time not free from the conditions that we have as we act and what we do. No? I'm not free to do something for which the conditions are not there. So, it's true that we have freedom, but the freedom lies between the causes that we have created in the past, the conditions that we have in the present, and we need to respect both of them. And when talking about the karma, for me, one important aspect is that it's not something that should come to us as something heavy. Very often I see people talking about the karma as something, oh, look how difficult the karma, such a difficult subject, so heavy to think about the karma, and so on. I think they're all the other way around. For me, reflecting upon karma and understanding that I am responsible for what I experience gives me so much joy. It's like, oh, so good. Because what are the alternatives? If I would not be responsible for what I experience, there will be only other two possibilities from my own perspective. One is that what I experience depends on the choice of someone else, or everything would just be chaos, would just be, how to say in English, coincidence. Which means, okay, whatever comes, there is no any coherence between things. No? Why this happened to you? Well, because it happened. So the possibilities is, or it happened without a reason, or it happens because someone else is responsible, or I am the responsible one. There's not so many other possibilities around, you know. And the real problem of not being the responsible ourselves is that this means that we cannot choose our future. Then yes, truly we have no freedom. Because if I am not responsible for what I am experiencing right now, it means I cannot be responsible for what I will experience tomorrow. This means I cannot direct my life. I cannot make true choices. So, when we analyze and we look clearly, and I don't believe in karma because that's a more comfortable way of looking at reality. Truly, I don't care to have a comfortable view of reality. I care about having a coherent view of reality, a consistent view of reality. It would be much more comfortable to have a view where we say, okay, everything will be just fine and all is fine. It's not exactly like that. We are responsible of what we do and so on. You know. Anyhow, when we analyze reality, when we look at how things are and we try to understand it and so on, following the advices of people that were more wise than us, and with their help to analyze and see, we see that everything is interdependent, everything is interacting with each other. And the same is interaction with our actions and so on. So going to the point, everything that we experience is a result of our own actions and the conditions in which we live. Which means we are responsible for what we experience, but at the same time we depend on the conditions in which we are. Which means the place where I am, the people with whom I live, and everything else which is around me. I am all the time interacting with that. So, I do have freedom, even though the freedom I have is not that big. Because I'm not free from my past, and I'm not free from the conditions that are in the present. But I am free to choose how to relate within the resources that I have, how I'm going to use them with the conditions I have in the present. This freedom I do have. So, on that, it comes the practice of purification, which is basically understanding better how karma works, because one very interesting thing is that actions that we have done in the past continue to be impermanent and continue to interact with us. Okay. It's true that what I have done and it's finished. I cannot go back and make a rewind and change my action. But the action that I have done, which is like a seed that I have planted, that have not yet given its results, it's still there. And it's still interacting, it's still impermanent, and I can interact with it in a way that I can actually make a change on it. And this is something that it's very important for us to do. So, through the practice of purification, there is two aspects which are important that come out of it. One is that in the moment that we openly admit a mistake that we have done, and we all do mistakes, I am the first one. Daily I do many mistakes. Of body, of speech, of mind. There are thoughts that come that maybe would be better if they had not come. There are words that we say that we could have said in a better way. There are actions that we do that were better to do in another way. You know, why do we do mistakes? In other words, why do we do actions that create a negative interdependence? Because we are ignorant. So while we do the action and we do not know that is a negative action, this means we are deeply inside our ignorance. In the moment that I recognize that a certain behavior is harmful to myself and I openly admit it as a mistake, how beautiful, how wonderful. Because now I can direct myself to be different. No? And somehow, I see quite often that when recognizing one's own mistakes, very often people see it. I see people, because luckily this is something I don't do. But
normally there is this attitude of seeing it as something heavy. Oh, why I did a mistake, how bad I am, and we see it something as something heavy. And I was thinking, why about that? And I believe one of the reasons is that we have an idealized image of ourselves. And when we see that we are not as good as we thought, or we are not what we are supposed to be somehow, then we get upset with ourselves. It's like somehow when we admit our own mistake, is a sort of as if we were somehow, how to say in English, we were we were betraying ourselves. Okay, how I could do this when I am that, Because I am ignorant. And I have all the different habits of anger and jealousy, and I am there. I am in samsara, I am in the middle of all of this, and I do have my ignorance. So how good that I can recognize and I can openly admit that that behavior is not good for me. And here comes another point. Once I understand that a certain behavior is harmful to myself, an behavior of body, speech, or mind, this is the first step to direct myself to change my attitude. But it's not because I understood that attitude is wrong that right away I can change. When I understand that a certain behavior is wrong, it's like I'm changing the address in the GPS. But I still need to take the car, put gasoline, drive many kilometers until I reach where I want to go. But if I don't give me the right direction, then sure I will never reach where I want. It's like one time we had a monk, some friends here, they were monks from Tibet, and they were here for not so long time. And they wanted to go to Genova. So they went to the train station, took the ticket, went to the train, and then the train was going, and suddenly they say, that's taking too long, And suddenly they start seeing all the mountains and here and there. They took the train to Geneva in Switzerland instead of taking the train to Geneva in Italy, So the point is that once I understood that I'm going in the wrong direction, I still have the whole way to change direction, Maybe I'm able to go out of the train before I reach the hole. Maybe I need to wait until I get to the final destination and then I can go back, And then, so this is just to say that once we understand that we are in the wrong direction, this doesn't mean that right away we're able to change it. But we need to acknowledge again and again that that's not the right direction so that we can gradually put our efforts and change the direction from where we go. So this is also important to understand because very often I see a sensation of guilt and heaviness because I know that I shouldn't do this, but I still do it. And then instead of saying, okay, I know that I shouldn't do and I still do it, so I should be more stronger not to do it, what happens very often is I know I shouldn't do, but I'm not able not to do. So I will just relax and continue to do. It's like, I shouldn't eat so much sweet. I know that that's harmful to me. Oh, but I am not able. So let's go to the sweet shop, buy as much as I can, because as I am not able, let's just enjoy myself eating as much as I can. No. That's not working. Once we have the awareness that something is wrong, then we should put that as our objective, remembering that there is a process, a path to reach that side, because to change habits take time. So, when the practice of purification have two main objectives, we could say two benefits. One benefits regard recognizing actions that we have done in the past that were a negative interdependence that we have made, and we want to eliminate that negative interdependence before we need to have its results, before the conditions come and then it's too late. So we need to do something before actually the result comes. On the other side, this is something important. So maybe there was a moment in my life which I went a little bit out of mind and I did some stupid things which I don't do anymore, and I recognized that that was really bad, and I want to openly admit that that was not good, and I don't want to pay the price of it future. It's like I made debts before, now I'm not making the debts anymore, but I don't want to pay the debts. So let's try to eliminate them before the time comes for me to pay them. It's like I made a mistake, I don't want to pay the price for what I did, so let's try to eliminate that mistake which I did in the past before I need to pay the consequences of it. This is purification. Together with that, it has another benefit of the purification, is to purify our habits, which is when I openly admit wrong actions that I do of body, speech, and mind. Wrong actions means negative interdependency that I create of body, speech, and mind, which I see that they are habits that I have. By openly admitting them as mistakes and redirecting myself, gradually this will help me to change that behavior. Every time I openly admit that that's a wrong way of speaking, of thinking, of acting, this will help me to make a bigger distance between every time I do that action. And then gradually this will help me to change that behavior also. So somehow, openly admitting our mistakes during doing the practices of purification is not something to make us feel more heavy, but it's a practice that should help us to direct ourselves in the direction we want to go. Okay? There is another important thing that comes together with that also. That is, when we recognize that we have a certain behavior that is not good, we're not talking about an isolated action that we did in the past that was a mistake and now we don't do it anymore. I'm talking about we have a pattern of way of speaking, we have a way of thinking, we have a way of acting. Normally we should start first changing our behaviors of body, which is more easy. Then we should change the behaviors of speech, then we should change the behaviors of mind. No? And then once we understand that there is something that is not good, and we say, okay, I need to change that behavior, when we avoid making something that we know is negative, that's not truly enough. We need at the same time to substitute that behavior with something that is positive. It's like if I take this object out of here because that's not the right place where it should be, but I don't put anything in its place, I just leave it empty. At some point my hand will be tired, I want to place it somewhere else. Okay, there's the place I put back again where it was. Okay, so I stop making a certain behavior, but at some time I feel the need that I want to do it again. There's nothing there, so I go back and I do the same attitude again. Instead, if I take out it from here and I put something else there, it will be more difficult to put it back. Maybe I will still put it back, but it's more difficult. So when we see that there is a wrong way of relating to a person, when we see that it's a type of thoughts that are not beneficial for us, and so on, when we have whatever attitude of body, speech, and mind, which is not correct, which is negative, and we openly admit it, we should try to substitute it with something that actually is positive. At least it's not negative. So that to help to not to repeat such action again. Okay? And this is very much connected to the fourth power of purification that we saw yesterday, which is the power of making a positive action in order to oppose to the negative action that we have done in the past. Okay? So this is just to understand a little bit better the benefit of the practices of purification. And what happens is that the more we go on our path, the more we develop ourselves, the more we feel the need to purify. Not in the sense that we feel more guilty or more heavy, no. The sense that the more I am aware of the behaviors that are not fine, I start from more gross level and then slowly I go more deep level. You know, even there was one great master which is depicted on my right side with the red head, Atisha, on the big one there, Atisha Dipankara Shrigyana. He was one of the most important masters on the history of Buddhism and a completely realized person. But on his path, for example, when he was traveling from India to Tibet, they were going on a big caravan, no? And it was a long way, up the mountains, down the mountains, up the mountains. There's a long way to go from India to Tibet, actually. So walking at the time. So we're talking about beginning of 11th century. So at that time, it said on his biography that he would stop the caravan from time to time, quite often actually. So he would stop the whole caravan and he would openly admit his mistakes. So he'll say, oh, I did this mistake, I had that thought which I should not have had, I broke this commitment, and I did this and I did that, and so on and so on. So one day, his disciples and friends and the people that were together with him in the caravan, someone came to him and said, oh, great master, you know, Tibet is quite far from here. We have a long way to go. So please, we don't need to stop every once in a while for you to say what are your mistakes. Also, mainly because we even don't understand what they are and how they can be mistakes, you know. They are so subtle. There are things that we even cannot understand what they are. So what's the point of you telling us which mistakes you did? You know, we don't care really about it, you know. You are a master, we don't need it to know. Even because we don't understand it. How these things are mistakes. So then he told them, every negativity, every negative interdependence that we create, it doesn't matter how big it may be. Even for the smallest one, if we do not take care of it right away, it has the tendency to grow. So I need to openly admit my mistakes as soon as they arise in order to avoid them from growing and from making them a habit and from letting them just grow freely. So as soon as it arises, I want to openly admit it. Because as we saw yesterday, when we openly admit a negative action, this helps right away to block that negative action from growing. It's like when we have a negative habit, and right away we see that it's a habit and we block it right away, this will help us from not repeating and not letting it become a real habit. So this is something that is very important on that, okay? So all the great masters, if we look, they were all doing a lot of practice of purification daily. And it's not something from beginners, purification practice. Oh, I am already following Buddhism for 25 years, I don't need to purify anymore. It's not like that. The more we go along the path, the more we see and we recognize more subtle things that we need to change. And it's so beautiful when we recognize something that is not okay. Because this means that I am aware of something that is not right, which means that I have opens the possibility for me to change. If I am not aware of the mistake that I'm doing, this doesn't mean that I'm not doing a mistake. Huh? This means that I can actually, from that moment on, I can actually have the opportunity and the possibility to redirect myself. And I think that that is beautiful. I think that that's very good when we can openly admit which are our mistakes and we can actually direct ourselves into that. So practices of purification is something that if we do not have this awareness constantly and daily, like Atisha was doing, you know, at least once a day, if we can have this opportunity of take the time once a day to check our mind stream, check our own actions, see what I have done, what I have not done. Okay, I should have done that which I didn't do. I didn't keep well my commitments. I spoke in a way which was not really the right way of speaking. I had this behavior. To check ourselves in order to put ourselves back on track and to direct ourselves for the way how we want to be. And in this way we take, we take the reins back in our hands. We take the direction in our hands of the direction that we want to go in life. And this is something which is, I think, extremely important. That's why the practices of purification is one of the practices which are taught to be done daily. And there are many ways of doing it. So now we'll go through one of these ways of doing this practice of purification. Okay? Okay, the point is the following. Atisha was the master, and the reason why he did that was to teach the people that actually it's important to admit openly one's own mistakes at every moment. So he had Atisha in that case. He actually, what he was doing, which is explained in the biography, is that was the way through which also he was already teaching people that were going with him the importance of openly admitting their mistakes. Okay, if we are not supposed to be, if we are not the teachers of someone and something, we don't need to block the caravan every time. What we need to do is to openly admit with ourselves. We can make the mantras, we can openly admit through our guru. If we have one friend or someone to whom we can openly admit, we can do that. This is something else, okay? In that case, that specific case is something which was specific in the case. That was the way how he was teaching them also. Okay. It means like to teach someone, the person must be open to receive what we want, what we can teach, and at the same time we must have the responsibility to teach. For example, one of the commitments of teaching the Dharma for a Dharma teacher is that it should not be taught what is not requested, and once it's requested, it should be taught. Okay? So this is one of the things. That's why you can stay with a master for a whole life. If you don't request, he's not going to teach you. Because if you are not open for the teaching, there's no point of receiving the teaching. Okay, he may try to show you other ways for you to make the request, but he will not do that. Okay. Just one thing before we start with the actual explanation of the practices of purification. Another request that was made was to explain a little bit something about accumulation of merit, because there are two main practices that we need to do. One practice is how to eliminate the negative interdependencies that we have created and try to avoid negative interdependencies for the future, which is the practices of purification. The other way is how to create positive interdependencies in order to help us to realize whatever we want. Okay? So, to accumulate merit means to create this positive interdependence. And this can come through different ways, by making offerings. Normally, one of the main ways of accumulating positive energy is that of sharing and giving. And we can share and give to two different objects, we say. We can give to those that have a higher spiritual development than ours, and this is called an offering. And we can give to those that have a similar or less spiritual development than ours. This means an act of generosity. Which means when we give something to our guru, we are not being generous, we are making an offering. When we give something to someone that is equal or lower than us, we don't know who is what, but anyhow, then this becomes an act of generosity, okay? So, there are different ways, and another way how we can accumulate merit is by keeping our virtuous commitments. There are different ways in which we can actually helping others to eliminate their suffering, to avoid suffering, and so on. So, one of the ways is that when we do something positive and we dedicate that energy, that positive interdependence for a specific objective, this is called a dedication. Here, mainly, we can understand the difference that is between a prayer and a dedication. A prayer is when we wish for something positive. So, for instance, there is a person that is sick, and I pray for the person to be quickly free from the sickness and recover from the sickness and reach a state of health. So, I dedicate that. I make this prayer. I wish the person to be healthy and so on and so on. The other way is to make a dedication. The dedication in this case means what? I do something positive. I help someone, I make offerings, I do something that generates well-being and happiness in others, I keep purely my commitments, I do anything that is positive, that generates positive energy, then I dedicate that positive energy for the person to be free from the sickness and to overcome the sickness and get healthy and so on. So, in the first case, I just wish. In the second case, I take something positive that I have created and I direct for it. If we make a metaphor, the first case is, I want to buy that house. The second case, I put some money apart in order to buy the house. That's like, if we take a metaphor, that's the main difference. So it is also important in our daily life to accumulate merits, to generate positive energies, and to dedicate it for whatever goals we have. To keep bodhicitta, in order to develop more patience, in order to overcome our own negative habits, or whatever positive wishes we have, we can dedicate our energy for that. One important thing is we shouldn't do it with a lot of expectations. Because if we create expectations, then after this we'll bring our mind down and we'll say, this doesn't work, it's not like that, and so on. So that's why it's even here, it's important always to keep a high objective, low expectation, and a constant effort. So otherwise, like, I will make 500,000 mantras in order to gain that. Then you do the 500,000 mantras, you don't get the result you wanted, then finally you are upset with the mantras. So this is not a point. Also because we need to create causes, but at the same time there must be conditions. It's not that obvious how things happen. So we generate an energy and we dedicate for it. Then after, we just need to flow how things happen. We cannot get this expectation that things would just be as I want. This will not happen. So, but it's important also to generate a positive energy and to direct it for whatever we wish. This positive energy that we generate is called the substance of dedication. Okay, Ngowe Tse in Tibetan. So, let's go to the actual practices of purification. Okay, there are many different practices of purification that can be done. I have prepared some time ago this little booklet in which we added 3 practices of purification which are very much done in our own tradition, in our own lineage. So the first one that we have here, which starts, we have the preliminary practices, and then the first practice starts in page number 21. Okay, which is called Tungshak, which is the openly admitting downfalls to the 35 Buddhas. There is a difference, first of all, between negative actions and downfalls. The main difference is the following. A negative action is something that whoever does it, it is a negative interdependence, such as killing or stealing or acting with violence towards others and so on. Then there are what are called downfalls. Downfalls are negative interdependence that normally would not be a negative interdependent, but it becomes because it's a breaking of a commitment. Let's make one example. I make the commitment to do 3 prostrations every day as I wake up in the morning. I make this commitment in front of my gurus, in front of the Buddhas, for the sentiments. I make this commitment. If I don't do the prostrations in the morning, I am breaking the commitment. It's a downfall. So in this case, generally speaking, not doing the prostrations in the morning is not a negative action. But in the moment that I have the commitment and I don't do it, it becomes a negative action. The negative action is actually not keeping the commitment which I took in front of all the holy beings and my guru. So someone may say, so better not to make any commitment so I don't have no downfalls. No? The point is that making the commitments is actually something that helps us to generate a lot of positive energy and strength. Okay? The problem of making commitments is not keeping them. That's the only problem, actually. Okay? So it's important to take commitments, but when we know that we are able to keep them, at least a great deal of it, we can put an effort and we know that we can keep the commitment. It's useless to take thousands of commitments that we are not able to keep them. Okay? So this is the meaning of downfalls. This first practice, it's a very important practice which is done in all the traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. And it has been passed by generation and generation from master to disciples. Lama Tsongkhapa himself did a lot of this practice. He recited it millions of times. And he would do this together with the prostrations. Okay? And the practice is basically divided into, we can say, 3 parts. The first part is where we invite all the Buddhas in the aspect of the 35 Buddhas, which we have depicted up there above where we have the side door, entrance door of the Gompa. Up there is an image, a long image with a Buddha in the center, and then we have on the 2 sides many Buddha with different colors, which are the 35 Buddhas there. So which are divided like in the groups of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. Okay? So they're all divided like the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, the 35 Buddhas of confession. So they are there representing all the other Buddhas. So first thing that we do is we make the connection with them, because the Buddhas also in this case, they represent our own potential of enlightenment. They represent our own pure nature of what we can develop also. And they represent that they have followed the same path as the one that we are doing right now. And then when openly admitting a mistake, there is a difference if I just do by myself or if I do in front of someone. It has a big difference actually. So here we openly admit our mistakes in front of all the Buddhas. So what we do is we take refuge, and then we invite the 35 Buddhas by paying homage to them. And then after that, in front of them, we openly admit our mistakes, which is the second step. And the third part is we rejoice about the positive actions that we have done. So this is what this prayer is all about, basically. So normally, the reason why we make a prayer, why we recite something, is because the words have the ability to direct the mind. That's why when we verbalize something, naturally, when I verbalize something, the mind is also following the direction of the words. Sometimes this doesn't happen when we simply become so used to say something, we just say it without even thinking about what we are saying. Hopefully this is not the case when we recite a prayer. But so this is also given the example which is said, the metaphor which is the meaning is like an old person, and the words is like the walking stick of this old person. So the old person needs the walking stick in be able to sustain him or herself. So the words is like the stick. The old person is like the meaning. So the meaning to be kept up and straight needs the walking stick of the words. Okay? So that's why we say prayers and words in order to direct our mind and to remember the meaning and so on. So here, as we saw yesterday, we need to follow a process which is generating the basis of purification, which is taking refuge and developing love and compassion, bodhicitta, openly admitting our mistakes, having a commitment not to repeat anymore, and then doing something with generating a positive energy in order to overcome that negative energy that we have done before. Okay? So here we do that. This practice is taking us naturally to do it. Also the practice of Vajrasattva, which we will see later. So my idea now is we go through the reading of this practice together. We make, I will read in English, I would make a brief comment through it as we go. And normally it's important to read it in our own language, because if we do not understand, then the words are not anymore there sustaining the meaning. But at the same time, it's also important to have the Tibetan for different reasons. One of the reasons is because then we are more sure that we don't lose the actual meaning, because if we translate and we forget the Tibetan, who knows how good is the translation? Okay, personally, I can do the translation in the best of my abilities. I do not trust it really. In the sense that Tibetan language is so different in many ways, it's so important to have the original text there. But the other most important reason why I like to recite it also in Tibetan is I received the transmission of this text in Tibetan, which my master received in Tibetan. Like this we go on for centuries. Many masters recited this text with the same sound, with the same words for centuries, with the same intention of purification and so on. So Lama Tsongkhapa did it millions of times, and when we recite it also, we connect to that energy. So the process of purification is not something only conceptual. There is also a part of connecting to the blessings, and through that blessings helping us to generate that state of mind and to purify our negativities also. So my advice is to recite it in Tibetan and then also in our own language such as English or Italian and so on. Okay? So I would just now read the text in English and give a small commentary as we go through it, just to explain the little parts of it, and then after we'll give the transmission of it in Tibetan together, okay? So, the first part of it is just in page 21, is the part in which is actually taking refuge and then where we do the praise to all the Tathagatas, okay, to all the Buddhas. And this part of the praise, it goes basically until page 24, okay, or here in the translation, page 25. So I'm not going to go through each one of these. This year we are just reading the names of each one of these Buddhas and paying homage to them. Then we continue as saying, O you 35 Buddhas and others. Who are the others? As many Tathagatas. Tathagatas means the Buddhas, means those that have gone beyond the state of sorrow and suffering. Arhats, those that have eliminated ignorance but are not yet a Buddha. Perfectly completed Buddhas as there are existing, sustaining and residing in all the world systems of the 10 directions. O you Buddha Bhagawans, please pay attention to me. So we request every holy being, every Buddha that exists in all directions, in all realms, in all forms, please come to this very right place and listen to me. So we request them to come here as a testimony for us. So please pay attention to me. Please listen carefully to me. In this life and in all the states of rebirth in which I have circled in samsara, throughout beginningless lives, so which means in this life and all lives that I have had before, I don't remember what I have done in the past. So basically we are going to openly admit all types of mistakes that could have done because we truly don't remember what was there. So whatever negative actions I have created, made others to create, or rejoice in the creation of, because there are 3 ways of making a negative action. Doing it ourselves directly, inducing others to do it, or rejoicing of others having done it. That's why it's said, for example, that in the case of war, the general of war makes much more negative karma than the actual soldier. Because in the moment that he gives the order for others to fight and kill, he actually has that karma of killing also, even though he's not killing himself personally. That's why also maybe there is the head of state, which is declaring war. The one that declares war has the negative karma of all the killings that come after him, even though he's never taking a weapon in his hands. So whatever negative karma we have done, by doing it directly ourselves, by inducing others to do it, or by rejoicing of others having done it, this is the first part. So we generalize whatever negative karma it may have done. Then we cite some types of negative actions here which comes. Whatever possessions of stupas actually means objects of offering, places of offerings, mainly means like taking offerings that were made to holy places and taking possession ourselves. Possessions of the Sangha of the spiritual community, or possessions of the Sangha of the 10 directions that I have appropriated, made others to appropriate, or rejoice in the appropriation of, which means stealing. Whatever I have taken in a non-appropriate way myself from the spiritual community, or made others to do, I openly admit that mistake. Then it continues by having here, whichever of the 5 actions of immediate retribution I have done, caused to be done, or rejoiced in the doing. What are the actions, the 5 actions of immediate retribution? Are 5 negative actions that are said to be of the strongest type of negative actions, that they are so strong that if not purified, there is a big possibility that when dying, it will give an immediate result of a lower rebirth. Okay? So, these actions are killing one's own father, killing one's own mother, killing a bodhisattva, a highly realized spiritual being, harming, taking out blood, harming physically and taking out blood of a highly realized being, like a bodhisattva or an arhat, and making division in the spiritual community, the Sangha. Okay? These are the 5 worst actions we could do. Okay? So, why is it negative to kill one's own parents? Basically because there is a very special connection between us and our parents and the gratitude that we need to have towards our parents. So when we do the action towards someone, depending on the type of relation that is there, the interdependence becomes stronger or weaker. If I kill someone that have been of great benefit to me and I kill someone that have been of no benefit to me, there is a big difference in between, from my side. Even though the value of the life of both of them has the same value. Because someone has been of great benefit to me, when I do not recognize that gratitude and I act with violence, it's much stronger for myself. Okay? So, that's why killing one's own parents is something so heavy. Why it's so heavy to kill bodhisattvas and highly realized beings, spiritually realized beings? Because if I kill someone or I harm someone that is of no much benefit for others, and if I kill and harm someone that is of great benefit for others, I am making a much higher harm when harming someone that could be benefiting others. Okay? And the spiritual community is actually something extremely important for our own development. So what happens is that for the spiritual development, the spiritual community is really important. So what happens is that when actually making a division within the spiritual community, with that we make a harm to many other people on their own spiritual path. So that's why it's actually very, very negative to make such divisions. Make a division in the spiritual community, it has a minimum of 4 people normally. Normally there is said to be the ordained Sangha, but also we have the non-ordained Sangha, for example, those that receive empowerments from the same master and so on. So if we create a solid division that people fight between themselves and we create a division in the Sangha, that's one of the worst actions that we could ever do also. Okay? So, hopefully no one have done any of these actions in this life, but we don't know, remember, if we have done it in our previous lives. So, if we have not done it, much better. If we did it, better to openly admit it. Because it's not because I don't remember something that I am not responsible for it. So here we just openly admit everything that we could have done in the past. Where were we? Whichever path of the 10 non-virtuous actions I have engaged in, cause others to engage in or rejoice in engaging in. What does this mean? Here, the path of the 10 negative actions is because the actual karma, it's always in the mind. If we really go to point the finger and see where is the action is in our intention, is in the mind. So the physical act of killing is not the karma. It's the mind that goes with it that is the actual karma. Okay? So, together with that, what happens is that the physical act is called the path of the action. So, it's also, sure there is results of doing the physical act also, but that's called the path of the action. So we have basically the 3 paths of action of body, the 4 paths of action of speech, and the 3 actions of mind. Negative actions which are normally cited, generally speaking. So we have the 3 negative actions of body is killing, stealing, and having a wrong sexual misconduct. Then we have the 4 negative actions of speech are lying, using the speech in a violent way, using the speech to make division between others, and idle speaking. Okay, just speaking nonsense, stupid things. So these are the 4 negative actions of speech. And then there are the 3 negative actions of mind, which is wishing for others' suffering, acting with the intention to harm others, wishing for the things that we cannot possess, desiring things that we cannot possess. And the third is to have wrong views, which now I'm not going to enter into details about that, okay? So these are an indication of negative actions. There are much more than 10, okay? But this is just an indication of 10 negative actions that are there. But then there are much more than that we can have in many other ways, okay? Harming physically someone is a negative action of body. We can have many other different ways that we can actually have negative actions also, speech and so on. So, once we generalize in the prayer, what we do, we generalize all the negative actions that we could have done in this life and in the previous lives, and we say, whatever I have created, being obscured by these karmas, caused me, by whatever negative actions I have done in the past, as a cause of that negative actions, it has caused me and sentient beings to be born in the hell realms, in the animal realms, in the preta realms, in religious countries, in places where spirituality does not exist, as barbarians, as long-life gods with imperfect faculties, holding wrong views, or not being pleased with Buddha's descent. Which means, by having made such negative actions in the past, I have experienced a lot of different types of sufferings. So all the sufferings which I have experienced in the past up to now are results of negative actions that I have done in the past. So, here is another important part which comes with it, which says, in the presence of the Buddha Bhagawans, which are in front of me, who are transcendental wisdom, who are eyes, that are the ones that see, who are witnesses, who are valid, who see with omniscient consciousness, I am admitting and confessing all these negativities, and I will not conceal them nor hide them. And from now on, in the future, I will abstain and refrain from committing them again. So in front of the Buddhas, I openly admit, I say in front of all of you, I openly admit the mistakes that I have done. I commit myself not to repeat them again. Okay? So we make this commitment. At this point, if we want, we can also add specific negativities, because what we are doing here is a general prayer, so it's done for everyone, so it's more generalized. So it's basically whatever types of negativity there exist, I openly admit it because I don't remember what I have done, and I commit myself not to repeat them again. But if we remember something that is specific, I have lied to that person, I have acted out of my jealousy and ignorance, and I have done this and that, and so on, we can also add here specific things that we remember of the past day, of the day of today, of last week, of last month, of last years, and so on. We can also put specific actions also. If we want, we can also verbalize them. Okay? And now here comes the third part. O Buddha Bhagawans, please pay attention to me. Here it's like saying that the next part is coming. In this life and in all other states of rebirth, in which I have circled in samsara, throughout beginless lives, whatever roots of virtue, whatever positive interdependencies I have created by generosity, even as little as giving just one mouthful of food to a being born in the animal realm, whatever roots of virtue I have created by guarding morality, by keeping my commitments, whatever roots of virtue I have created by following a pure conduct, whatever roots of virtue I have created by fully ripening sentient beings, which means by guiding others on their own spiritual path of development. Whatever roots of virtue I have created by generating bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment of great love and compassion. Whatever roots of virtue I have created by my unsurpassed transcendental wisdom, which means whatever roots of virtue I have created by developing the correct view of reality. All this assembled and gathered, combined together, I fully dedicate to the unsurpassed, the unexalted, the higher than the higher, that superior to the superior. Thus, I completely dedicate to the highest, perfectly complete enlightenment. So which means I dedicate all the positive actions that I have done. I rejoice of them. How wonderful I have done, whatever positive thing I have done. And here, if we like, we can remember specific things also. I dedicate it all for enlightenment. Made through this energy, I develop my qualities to their maximum potential in order to help others also to develop their qualities and to be free from suffering themselves. Okay? Just as the previous Buddha Bhagawans have fully dedicated just as the future Buddha Bhagawans will fully dedicate, and just as the present abiding Buddha Bhagawans are fully dedicating, like that I too dedicate it fully. So this means that we say, as just as the Buddhas of the past have done, so I will do in the present, just as the ones in the past have done, in the future will do, and the present are doing, so I also do here myself. I dedicate my merits, I dedicate the positive energy I have created for others also. Okay? So, here, this is where this prayer ends. And from that point on, when it starts, I confess all negativities individually and so on, this part is like the same prayer that we have just done, but made into verses, okay? And then it has here the part which starts from here and goes up to page 35, which is the same meaning, but the actual prayer of the confession of the 35 Buddhas, and here when we say, like that, I too dedicate fully. Then from the next part on is where we put it into verses, the part of the same meaning of openly admitting our negativities and making a commitment not to repeat again and rejoicing on the virtues that we have done. Okay? So as we can see, it's a simple prayer which helps us to dedicate this thought of saying, okay, I openly admit my mistakes, I commit myself not to repeat again. And I rejoice about the positive things I have done, and I commit myself to continue doing them. This is what we do. So it's a way of redirecting ourselves, okay? So now we will do the transmission of this prayer. I will read it in Tibetan and do the transmission, and after we do it again together, all together as a prayer, as a practice, and then in the afternoon we will do specifically the practice of Vajrasattva, okay? So, as I will do the transmission, it is important to remember that I have received this transmission from my own gurus, such as Lama Michel Rinpoche and other also. They have received from their gurus, and like this we can go on and on back until I reach Buddha Shakyamuni. So we imagine that above me there is my guru, Lama Michel Rinpoche, above him there is Trichan Rinpoche, and like this we go on with all the masters of the lineage. But we imagine like from Buddha coming a flow of light, which is the essence of the blessings of this prayer that comes from the heart of each one of them, up to my heart, and from my heart it goes to the heart of each one of you. Okay? So I will first read it in Tibetan as a transmission, then after that we do together in Tibetan, then Italian and English together. Okay? Tonsha shu so tu tadu lama la gyabdu jio, sangye la gyabdu jio, chola gyabdu jio, gendu la gyabdu jio, tenpa chumden de, deshin sheba tra chumba yang, dabar tobe sangye pe, gyaba shake tu bala cha zel, deshin sheba dorje nyempo, rabdu chumba la cha zel lo, deshin sheba rinche vudu la cha zel lo, deshin sheba lu wangi kya bala cha zel lo, deshin sheba pawa de la cha zel lo, deshin sheba pe ki la cha, deshin sheba rinche me la cha zel lo, deshin sheba rinche da la cha zel lo, deshin sheba tonga ten yo la cha zel lo, deshin sheba rinche da la cha, deshin sheba tima me bala cha zel lo, deshin sheba pe jin la cha zel lo, deshin sheba tsamba la cha, deshin sheba tsambe jin la cha zel lo, deshin sheba puchu la cha zel lo, deshin sheba chule la cha zel lo, deshin sheba pe san la cha, deshin sheba zenden pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba siji ta ye la cha zel lo, deshin sheba we pe la cha, deshin sheba nyang me pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba me seme ki pu la cha zel lo, deshin sheba me do pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba tsambe we se number robe ngombar kem la cha zel lo, deshin sheba pe me we se number robe ngombar kem la cha zel lo, deshin sheba nor pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba treme pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba tsembe shindu yonda la cha zel lo, deshin sheba wambo toki kyan tsengi kya po la cha zel lo, deshin sheba shindu number nube pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba yule shindu number kya wa la cha zel lo, deshin sheba nube pe la cha, deshin sheba number nube shebe pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba kune nawa kube pe la cha zel lo, deshin sheba rinche pe ma number nube pa la cha, deshin sheba dra chomba yang dabar sobe sangi rinpoche, rinpoche dan pe ma rabdu shuba riwangi kya po la cha zel lo, deshin sheba deda la soba chuchik dengi kam tam che na, deshin sheba dra chomba yang dabar sobe sangi chom den de, kan chi nye chi shu te tso shin shebe sangye chum den de de da tam che da la gon su sol. Dagi kewa di dan kewa toma tama ma chi ba ne korwa na korwe kene tam che tu dikbe mi gewe legi ba dan gidu tsilwa dan kiba la che sui rawa am.
Chedenge koram, gendenge koram, chojo gendenge kora trabadan, chodo chubadan, trabala jesui rawang. Sama chibange legibadan, gido tselwadan, gibala jesui rawang. Mikewa chui legi lama yandabra langwa la shubadan, judo tsewadan, chubala jesui rawang. Legi driba kange drimne da simche nyawara chiba tundro kene su chiwa ida yuldu kewa yuta kopdu lalor kewa latse rimbo nesu kewa wambo ma tsamwar gyurwa tawar lokbar zimbar gyurwa sange chungwa meba sange chungwa la nyebe mi gibe gyurwe legi driba kan lakba deda tamche sange chumdende Yeshesu gyurba chendu gyurbe pando gyurba tsemar gyurba kemba sije dedatan dedargi chenga tolo shas michabo mibeto lenche kyan do lenche kyan dombragi lenche kyan dombragi la so sange chumden de deda tamche dala gonso so dagi kewa deda kewa toma tamama chibane korwana korwe kene ta kene shendato Jimba Tana Tundra Kenesu Gyurva Sekam Chik Sam Jimbe Gewe Tsawa Kan Labadang Dagi Tsutrin Sumbe Gewe Tsawa Kan Labadang Dangi Tsambra Chebala Nebe Gewe Tsawa Kan Labadang Dagi Simche Yonsu Mimbar Gebe Gewe Tsawa Kan Labadang Dagi Chancho Chodo Sim Gebe Gewe Tsawa Kan Labadang Dagi Alana Mebe Yeshiki Gewe Tsawa Kan Labadeda Tamche Chikdu Dushin Dumde Domne Lana Ma Chibadang Kongna ma chibadang kongme kongma lame lama ra yonsu ngo wa lana meba yang dabra zobe janjudu ngo yonsu ngo wara kiwo Jidra debe sangye chumden de namge yonsu ngo wadang jidra ma jongwe sangye chumden de namge yonsu ngo war gyurwadang Jidra tadar shube sangye chumden de namge yonsu ngo war zebe teshindu dagi kyang yonsu ngo war kiwo Dikpa tamche ni sosro sha sonam tamche la ni jesu yirango sangye tamche la kushin so wa deva so dage lana mebe ge shege che dambo topra kyur che mi che gyawa kanda tada shupadang kanda debe kanda dadan teshin kangma jum yonde ngaba taye gyazo dragun la talme jarwar gide kyapso nyawra chiwo kanda yige namsomte Luge lenye namba sum, ngage namba shidani, mige chubo susrasha, toma mene tade bara mige chudan samenga, simni nyomo wangyurpe, dikpa tamche susrasha, samenga bo dida samenga bo dagi dikpa nam, dagi mishe wange cheba dang, Tenyang tongwa shaba dijope nyurdu malu yonsu changwara sho ngonche kegi kale de tanye jikbe chetone kila kyepsu jila ki jikba nyurdu sedu so tuson wange goson dikbe le mige chuda tsame nyewa nga so tardan gyase rikzingi lapso nyambra tamche tolo sha Okay. So we recite once together in Tibetan, then after Italian and English. Tu ta tu la ma la kyapsu chiwo sange la kyapsu chiwo che la kyapsu chiwo gendun la kyapsu chiwo tu ta tu Lama la kyapsu chiwo sange la kyapsu chiwo che la kyapsu chiwo gendun la kyapsu chiwo tu ta tu lama la kyapsu chiwo sange la kyapsu chiwo che la kyapsu chiwo gendun la kyapsu chiwo Dömba chumdende deshin shekpa dra chumba yang dabra tsobe sangepe gyawa shakya tu bala cha tselo deshin shekpa dorje nimbo rabdu chom bala cha tselo Deshin Shepa Rinchen Ve Trula Cha Tse Lo Deshin Shepa Lu Wangi Gyal Pola Cha Tse Lo Deshin Shepa Pawo De La Cha Tse Lo Deshin Shepa Pel Gela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Shepa Rinchen Mela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Rinchen Da Vela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tongwa Tön Yela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Rinchen Da Wala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tima Me Bala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Pel Jin La Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tsampala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tsampe Jila Cha Tse Deshin Sheba Chula La Cha Tse Deshin Sheba Chule La La Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Pel San La Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tsenden Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Sijita Yela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba We Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Nyange Mebe Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Semegi Pula Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Meto Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tsambe Vesira Namba Reba Ngombra Kem Bala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Peme Vesira Namba Reba Ngombra Kem Bala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Nor Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Drimbe Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Tsempe Shindu Yon Drala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Wambo Togi Gyal Tsengi Gyal Pola Cha Deshin Sheba Shindu Nambra Nembe Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Yule Shindu Nambra Gyal Wala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Shebra Nambra Numbe Shekpe Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Shebra Kune Nawa Kobe Pela Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Rinchen Pema Nambra Num Pala Cha Tse Lo Deshin Sheba Dra Chompa Yan Dabra Zope Sang Rimpo Chedam Pema Rabdu Shupa Riwangi Gyalpo La Cha Tse Lo Deta La Sote Chu Chu Jikdengi Kam Tamche Na Deshin Shepa Dra Chompa Yan Dabra Zope Sange Chomdende Kanye Kan Chinye Chi Shute Tsoshin Shebe Sange Chomdende Deda Tamche Dala Gonsu So Dagi kewa didan kewa tomadan tamama chibe korwa na korwa kene tamche tu dikpe mi gewe le gibadan gidu zelwadan gibala jesu iranwa am chetengi koram gendugi koram chochu gendugi kor chokpadan Troktu chukpadan trokpa la jesu irangwaan Tsama chipa nge le gibadan gidu tselwadan Giba la jesu irangwaan Mi gewa chui le gilam yandak pra langwa la shukpadan Judu tsewadan jukpa la jesu irangwaan Legi driba kange drimne da simche nyawara chiwa tundro kene su chiwa idagi yultu kewa yu takob tu lalor kewa la tse rimbo nesu kewa
Wambo ma tsangwara gyurwa tawa lokpra zimbra gyurwa Sange chungwa la nyeba mi gewara gyurwe lege driba kange la kan lakpa teda tamch Sange chumden de yeshe su gyurpa chendo gyurpa pando gyurpa semra gyurpa kempa sikpa teda ge chengara tolo shakso mi chabo mi beto Lenche kyan dombra gibala so Sangye chumdende teda tamche dala gonso so Dagi gewa chididan kewa toma tama ma chibe korwa na korwe Kene shenda tu jimba tana tundro kene su gyurbala Segam chiksam jimbe gewe tsawa kang laba dang Dagi tsultrin sumbe gewe tsawa kang laba dang Dagi tsambra chebala nebe gewe tsawa kang laba dang Dagi semche yonsu mimbra chebe gibe gewe tsawa kang laba dang Dagi janchu ge choto semkebe gewat gewe tsawa kang laba dang Dagi lana mepe yeshe ge gewe tsawa kang lakba deda tamche Chikdu dushin domde domne lana ma chiba dang Kong na ma chiba dang Kong me kong ma lame lamara yonsu ngo Lana mebe yandabra zobe janju tu yonsu ngo waragi wo Jitra debe sange chumden de namge yonsu ngo waradang Jitra majombe sange chumden de namge yonsu ngo waragyurwadang Jitra tadra shupe sange chumden de namge yonsu ngo waradzeb Teshin tu dagi kya yonsu ngo waragi wo Okay. We read the English together once. Throughout all times, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. Throughout all times, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. Throughout all times, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. To the founder, Bhagavan Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, glorious conqueror Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, I prostrate. To Tathagata, throughoutly destroying with Vajra essence, I prostrate. To Tathagata, radiant jewel, I prostrate. To Tathagata, king, lord of the Nagas, I prostrate. To Tathagata, army of heroes, I prostrate. To Tathagata, delighted hero, I prostrate. To Tathagata, jewel fire, I prostrate. To Tathagata, jewel moonlight, I prostrate. Tathagata, meaningful to see, I prostrate. To Tathagata, jewel moon, I prostrate. To Tathagata, stainless one, I prostrate. To Tathagata, bestowed with courage, I prostrate. To Tathagata, pure one, I prostrate. To Tathagata, bestowed with purity, I prostrate. To Tathagata, water god, I prostrate. To Tathagata, deity of the water god, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious goodness, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious sandalwood, I prostrate. To Tathagata, infinite splendor, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious light, I prostrate. To Tathagata, sorrowless glory, I prostrate. To Tathagata, son of non-craving, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious flower, I prostrate. To Tathagata, pure light rays, clearly knowing to play, by play, I prostrate. To Tathagata, lotus light rays, clearly knowing by play, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious wealth, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious mindfulness, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious name, widely renowned, I prostrate. To Tathagata, king holding the victory banner of foremost power, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious one, totally subduing, I prostrate. To Tathagata, utterly victorious in battle, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious transcendence, truth, subduing, I prostrate. To Tathagata, glorious manifestations, illuminating all, I prostrate. To Tathagata, all subduing, jewel lotus, I prostrate. To Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, King of the Lord of mountains, firmly seated on jewel and lotus, I prostrate. To all owe you 35 Buddhas and others, as many Tathagatas, Arhats, perfectly completed Buddhas as there are existing, sustaining and residing in all the world systems of the 10 directions, all you Buddha Bhagawans, please pay attention to me. In this life and in all the states of rebirth in which I have circled in samsara throughout beginless lives, whatever negative actions I have created, made others create, or rejoice in the creation of, whatever possessions of stupas, possessions of sangha, or possessions of the sangha of the 10 directions that I have appropriated, may others appropriate or rejoice in the appropriation of. Whichever of the 5 actions of immediate retribution I have done, caused to be done, or rejoice in the doing of. Whichever path of the 10 non-virtuous actions I have engaged in, cause others to engage in, or rejoice in engaging in. Whatever I have created, being obscured by these karmas, caused me and sentient beings to be born in the hell realms, in the animal realms, and in the preta realm, in religious countries as barbarians, or as long-life gods, with imperfect faculties, holding wrong views, or not being pleased with Buddha's descent. In the presence of the Buddha Bhagawans, who are transcendental wisdom, who are eyes, who are witnesses, who are valid, and who see with omniscience consciousness, I am admitting and confessing all these negativities, and I will not conceal them nor hide them. And from now on, in the future, I will abstain and refrain from committing them again. O Buddha Bhagawans, please pay attention to me. In this life and in all other states of rebirth in which I have circled in samsara throughout beginless lives, whatever roots of virtue I have created by generosity, even as little as giving just a mouthful of food to a being born in the animal realm, whatever roots of virtue I have created by guarding morality, whatever roots of virtue I have created by following pure conduct, whatever roots of virtue I have created by fully ripening sentient beings, whatever roots of virtue I have created by generating bodhicitta, and whatever roots of virtue I have created by my unsurpassed transcendental wisdom. All this assembled and gathered, combined together, I fully dedicate to the unsurpassed, the unexalted, the higher than the higher, the superior to the superior. Thus, I completely dedicate to the highest, perfectly complete enlightenment. Just as the previous Buddha Bhagawans have fully dedicated, just as the future Buddha Bhagawans will fully dedicate, and just as the presently abiding Buddha Bhagawans are fully dedicating, like that I too dedicate fully. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Tishta Didro Mebawa Suto Kayo Mebawa Supo Kayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meprayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Siddhan Shriyam Kuruho Ha 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 ho Bhagawa Sarva Tata Gata Vajra Mame Vajra Bhava Maha Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Jetsun Lame Kotse Rapten Chi Namkara Chinle Chochur Losan Tembe Drume Sasumgi Drove Munsel Tato Ne Gyurch Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Concho Sumge Jingelo, Concho Sumge Ngodrup Sol,
Kuncho sumge trashisho.
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the rituals grant us their blessing. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspicion. Om Ahum, Tembala me Sangye Rinpoche, Kyobala me Tamcho Rinpoche, Drimbala me Gendu Rinpoche, Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chopa Bu.